Hi friends, welcome back to this little corner of the internet that is my channel, and today I wanted to go over my top 5 books of 2022. I read about 40 or 41, well, so far I've read 40 books this year. I'm hoping to get the 41st one done before New Year's, which is literally tomorrow. But I've read at least 40 books this year, and I have a few that I really loved, and I actually really enjoy watching booktube videos, even though I don't really make them, aside from that one review I did. But I thought I would try to do a top 5 and see if you guys like it. I've been dipping my toe in booktube because I really enjoy watching it, so I want to see if I can maybe make some content there. And just as a disclaimer, one of these books is like an academic book. I read it for one of my university classes, and I know like technically it should be number 1 because it's a classic and it's like amazing and everything, but I'm ranking more on how much I personally enjoyed it. Not to say I didn't really enjoy this book, it's in my top 5, but it's not number 1 just because I personally related to / enjoyed the ones above it more, if that makes sense. Like it's hard to relate to a classic. And with that out of the way, let's start with number 5, which I don't have most of these with me, so I'll put a picture. But it is the play Sweat by Lynn Nottage. I read this for a theater class that I was in. We had to read and review a certain amount of plays in the term, and I just like fell in love with this play. It is my new favorite play. I'm obsessed with it. I love it so much. It follows the past and present lives of this set of characters who has gone through a union workers' strike gone wrong, where a lot of people were feeling betrayed, a lot of people were physically injured, people went to jail, like friendships were broken, family ties were severed, and it's just all about like the struggle of the working class in America. And also there's elements of like being a Black worker amongst a majority white workers in America and how that affects you and what that experience is like. And I found it like really enlightening. The characters were really well written. It felt like even the characters who at the beginning I thought that's like the bad guy, I don't like them, by the end I could really sympathize with them once we went more into the past and understood what they've been through. Like you could really have sympathy for every character and just like the pure emotion in it. And like I don't want to call it drama because it's more serious than that, but for lack of better words, the drama like really pulled me in. Once I started reading it, I read most of this in one sitting. I would have read it all in one sitting if I didn't have other schoolwork to do. All in all, I really love this book, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, which I will link my account in the description if you want to check me out on Goodreads. My number 4 for this list is the one that the disclaimer was about. I read this for another class, and that is Plato's Symposium, which I was not expecting to like as much as I did. I took a philosophy class in high school and really enjoyed it. So like philosophy is something that interests me, but I've always shied away from really deeply looking into philosophy because I feel like it'll just mess with my head and I like won't be able to understand what's going on. But my profs are really good at breaking this down in a way that made it make sense, that we could relate to it and fully understand Symposium, which is essentially just a bunch of philosophers giving eulogies to the god Eros at a party where they decide that the god Eros does not get enough praise and they should all write eulogies to praise Eros, and Eros being the god of love and desire. So, I mean, I wrote a pretty good, if I do say so myself, a pretty good essay about this book and how each character delved into the meaning of love and what love does for humanity and their personal theories and ideas of why we love and why Eros gifted us the experience of love. And it's really beautifully written. It's a beautiful piece. It really makes you think about life and humanity. I don't know. It's just amazing and like really enlightening, and I don't know how to talk about this in modern terms, like character arcs and blah. Like, it's just good. Read Symposium. And my number 3 on this top 5 list is Moon Knight, just one of the Moon Knight runs. Some places it's labeled as Moon Knight Reincarnations. This specific run I got all in one book, and it's written by Jeff Lemire and Doug Moenk, and is illustrated by James Stocco, who is such a good illustrator, by the way. These, like, some of the full page spreads, well, all of the full page spreads are just gorgeous. I read this on a bus trip to New York, and the whole time I was like so sleep deprived because I was getting up so early in the morning to go on this bus. But I was so hyper focused and like so sucked in. It's just very well written and illustrated. Like the illustrations really do a good job of adding to the story. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're not familiar with Moon Knight, he is a Marvel superhero, also known as Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, Frenchie, or Jean-Paul. Jean-Paul and Frenchie being the same person. And they are a system who has dissociative identity disorder, who is also a superhero working for the god Khonshu, the god of the moon. This specific run focuses on Mark Spector struggling with understanding who he is and not knowing what's real and what's not, and if Moon Knight really exists, kind of, or if he's insane. And also just like him interacting with Jake and Steven and Frenchie and struggling to understand what or who they are and building relationships with them in a really beautiful way, especially between Mark and Steven. It almost made me cry multiple times just with the way that him and Steven came to understand each other. Mark and Steven being usually, from what I've seen in this and in the TV series, the two alters that front the most. So it made sense that they had a strong relationship built upon. I thought the characterization was really well done. The action was awesome. The art was gorgeous, and just it was a really gripping story. I did only give it 4 out of 5 stars just because, and this is a spoiler alert, so skip to this time if you don't want to hear spoiler. I really had issue with the fact that when Mark wanted to move on and heal and sort of, I don't know, like grow as a person and be able to function better without losing time and losing himself, he literally killed all of his alters. And I thought that that was an unnecessary way to portray like when alters integrate into one person. Because DID has a stigma of the people who have it being violent, and just by having him kill them, I thought added to that, and I really didn't like it. But other than that, I love this book. My number 2 in my top 5 of the year is Love Me Whole by Nikki James, which I'm not going to talk a ton about because I made a whole video about it, which I recommend checking out. But this book follows 2 main characters, one being a man who has dissociative identity disorder and one being a man who does not, and they meet at a local college in a class together for business, and they have to do a project together, and the guy who doesn't have DID is just really determined to be this guy's friend because he seems really lonely and secluded and closed off, and he is because he has DID, and that makes socializing quite difficult. But they build this romance eventually from their friendship, and I can't speak to how well this is portraying DID really because I don't have it, but I have heard really like a lot of praise from the community about how it shows the difference between all of the alters, how they interact with each other, how they interact with the partner, and what it's like having a relationship with someone who has DID and what it's like being someone who has DID. So I thought that this was a really beautiful story. Really like good, strong emotions in it, strong characters, clearly a lot of research and thought was put into it, and just like a really gripping story. I gave it a 5 out of 5. And my number 1 top book that I read in 2022, the only one that I have a physical copy of where I'm at right now, is Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Allier-Sainz. I love this book so much. Literally my top 3 books ever are Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which is the prequel to this. Well, this is a sequel. this, Aristotle and Dante dive into the waters of the world and love me whole. So, like, I read 2 of my favorite books this year. But if you're not familiar with the first book in this series, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, it follows Aristotle and Dante, who are 2 young boys, and they meet one summer at their local pool because neither of them really have any friends to talk to or hang out with that summer. So they spend time at the pool, and they meet each other, and they build this connection and this bond with each other that is just like really beautifully written, is the only way that I can say it. Like, the way that they get to know each other and connect with each other and build that romance is just like so, oh, I love reading it, and I want to reread it again. And this is a lovely continuation of that. This feels more like a coming of age, because in Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World, they are graduating high school and dealing with questions of, you know, we're in a relationship now, but we're going to different schools, and what does that mean? And like, what do we do in the future? Like, we love each other and we care about each other a lot, but thinking about going our separate ways for school is really scary. And that's a fear that a lot of people face, and there's added pressure and fear in this because they are in a queer relationship. They're 2 boys and there's a lot of fear around showing affection in public, or, you know, like working through letting the parents in on the loop, which is a bit in the first book as well. But this one is less about like, how do we tell our parents, and more about how do we get used to our parents knowing that we're queer and that we're in a relationship, and like, that's a whole different family dynamic now. There's also a lot of like family drama components in this, and like, all in all, there's like really strong characters. Even when there's conflicts, it doesn't feel like you pick a side. It doesn't feel like someone's wrong. It always feels like you can sympathize with everyone, which I really appreciate. And I think it just does a really good job of portraying a realistic teenage romance. Like, it's not the most healthy thing in the world, and they have struggles that they have to work through, but they really push through it together. And that's what like makes this such a good read to me, that like, it has that strong romance, but it's a realistic romance. And I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So that is all for my top 5 books of 2022. I hope you enjoyed watching this, because I really enjoyed looking back at the stuff that I've read and really enjoyed reading over the year, just collecting my thoughts. Let me know if you want to see more booktube type videos. I have a couple of ideas, not a whole lot compared to my other content, but I want to try it out. If you like this, let me know, and be sure to like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and I will see you next time.